Hello, this is Ramirez with Tidewater Renaissance Fighting Arts, and we're going to continue on with my armor series for Harness Fectin, and we're going to talk about shoulder armor. So, shoulder armor really breaks down into two different common types of shoulder armor if you're looking for shoulder armor. One is the Spaulders, and the other is the Pauldron. And you might ask yourself, well, which one is right for me? And the answer is kind of complicated. Number one, it's going to really depend on what type of armor you're working on, what period, what region. If you're really focusing on later period English armor, you're probably, unless you're doing some of the jousting armor, you're probably going to end up with a Spaulders. And you might ask, well, what's the difference? A Spaulders is generally smaller, fits more tightly on the arm. It may or may not have these additional lames and the number of lames, depending on how long your arm is. But it's still fairly close to the body. It's not going to cover quite as much of the interior of the shoulder. You may have a bezigue, which I'll show you on the other piece. There's another component that can help protect the actual shoulder joint, right where the collarbone kind of ends, and you have that because, especially in harness fectin, this area is a major target. And you'll notice that while this does a good job of protecting the outside of the arm, the inside of my arm, which would normally be protected by chainmail, doesn't get as much protection, as much love, if you will, in terms of defense. Sometimes when people are just thinking, well, you can protect the outside. This does a nice job of it. It's less bulky. It means I can move more. You'll see some armors have what they call asymmetrical shoulders, basically saying that, in this case, if I was right-handed, I might want more mobility out of this hand, and my left hand, maybe I want to be guarded a little bit more, so I might have more of a Pauldron style on one side and then a Spaulders style on the other. That's a very particular style of armor. I'm not going to get into all the specifics there because I really just want to talk about the differences and similarities in the armor. But once again, think that the Spaulders is kind of a smaller, tighter fit. Some people will just have just that main plate, that top plate. They may not have lames throughout. The main idea being to have something, if someone hits you really hard here, to protect you, and then you would have your chainmail on with that. The Pauldron, however, is much bigger. It's much deeper. If I show you kind of the inside of that. This particular one was created by Armstreet. This one has a bezigue. So bezigue is this little plate here. And you can see that when it's hanging out, this helps protect my shoulder joint. So if I lift up my arm and someone tries to hit, they end up hitting that instead of hitting my arm. You might say, well, that's an odd shape. It is an odd shape. A lot of bezigues commonly you'll see are circular, but it's not a flat piece. And I think that's kind of one of the things people forget. I'm going to try to turn this in a way you can see. It's actually curved. It's actually dished inward. So if a hit hits here, it wants to glide to the center. Part of armor's purpose is not simply to block, in other words, get hit and take the force, but it's to deflect, to get shots that would come in to go somewhere else. So this kind of really heavily rounded style, if it was on my arm and someone hits, it wants to go out here or over there. What it doesn't want to stay. This one is one of those cases where it goes in to the center here, and then that'll help distribute the force rather than it staying right here. If it goes here, at least it's in the maximum where the force is going to distribute out over this area and theoretically over the rest of my armor as well. So why bother with the little one when I can have this big protection? Well, number one, weight. This weighs a lot more than the Spaulders does. Now, obviously, there are other issues. The armor style, the historical period will also dictate if you have a pauldron or a Spaulders. But as I'm talking a little bit more about this one because this is the one I currently use in my armor kit. And what are the other trade-offs? Well, when you start going here, getting higher than that, and I'm not wearing the rest of my kit, but I can get about here. As the armor gets bigger and more protective, you are constantly making a trade-off. You're making a trade-off between mobility and protection. The more mobile you are, the less your armor is going to protect. So the Spaulders, while it might, might not have the coverage, that's actually very easy to do, and the articulation allows me to move a lot better. At a certain point, depending on who you are and what you do, you might opt for more protection over more mobility. That's not to say that I'm immobile in my pauldrons, but there's probably a little less flex, but that trade-off might be worth it. For me, having that extra because I'm doing harness fecting and I'm trying to protect potential targets from my opponent, having something that's like a pauldron, having that extra protection here is really kind of a big deal. And even if it moves back, and on my armor it does tend to want to move back a little bit, I still get that Bezigue being right where I need it. And that's really kind of important. If it stays forward on my arm, I'm in really, really kind of good shape. So yeah, I absolutely, like my big old pauldrons versus the Spaulders. If you are curious, the pauldron I have, I've had it, I want to say probably at least 20 years. It's at least 20 years old, and I don't know who made it. I know that it is stainless, but yeah, there's no maker's mark. I bought it at Penzic a number of years ago, so it's possible it could be Ice Falcon, it could be someone else. I'm not sure. It's been such a long time since I bought it. And funny story is I bought it, it didn't have the strap here, so I know I went to another vendor who put this arm strap on it. And that's one of the things I actually need to replace on it because it's my arms have gotten bigger since I owned this, so I need to restrap it. That's why I haven't bothered to restrap it here for this video. But I hope that is helpful. So we talked about the helmet in one video. We're now going into the pauldrons. I will try to go through my entire kit and explain different things. I do have a couple of pieces that I'm probably selling to a friend of mine, but before I do, I want to try to get those on this video and just go from there. So, in the meantime, this is Ramirez with Tidewater Renaissance Fighting Arts. We're based out of Norfolk, Virginia, and I will see you in the next video.